It should be coming up. I'm live. 4 destinations up and running. Hello, hello, good people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am here with Nodella Jordan today. She is the two-time author and journal writer. And she does some other things she's going to tell us about today as well. So you have My Intimate Place and Sassy are your two books. Okay. I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I wasn't sure because sometimes we're on mute and I just didn't
Yes,
want to be on mute. Okay,
yes.
so today Nodella is going to tell us about her two books. So I'm going to start with an interview and then we will turn the live over to Nodella so that she can go ahead and do a little reading for us. Okay.
Yes.
So Nodella, how did you get started?
Well, it's actually something that I had within me even as a little kid. And, I was thinking even last night about how did I actually get started. For those who really know me, know that I'm a talker, but I'm also a writer. And so when I was in elementary or middle school, high school, my teachers would ask us for maybe a 1 or 2 page book report. I would bring them 5 pages. And I found myself, just always writing more than what I needed to write. And so back in 2013, I was at a church service and the pastor who was ministering that night had called me out and she said, God said to write 2 books. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And I figured it was something I would do once I retired. God then shifted me here to Baltimore a year later, which was in 2014. Got here, started working, lost my job. And I said, God, where's my job? He says, I told you to write 2 books. I said, I am when I retire. And he clearly said, I mean, now. I said, okay. I said, so what am I supposed to do? Went to bed that night, got up the next morning, started praying. And I said, well, what are we going to call this book? And he said, The Intimate Place, My God, My Man, Myself. The Intimate Place came about because I would go to worship service and I would see people struggling to be intimate with, and I'm going to say it like this, with this God they say they know. And I said, how can you say you know him, but you struggle to be intimate with him? That's like a husband or a wife struggling to be with their spouse. And I said, God, there's something wrong with that. And I thought that it was going to be something that I maybe did a seminar or a workshop on, but he never released me to give out that information. And it wasn't until I moved here to Baltimore. And when I got up that morning, I said, he gave me the name of the book. The next morning, which was a Friday morning, I will never forget, December 10th of 2014, got up that morning, sat down at the table and started writing. And the amazing part of it is that I wrote The Intimate Place in 10 days.
Oh.
But don't forget, I wasn't working. So I would get up every morning and I would sit at that table for 3 and 4 hours writing. And this is what the book looks like. Now, although it's thin, let me tell you, there is a lot of stuff packed in here. And I was even reading through it and I'm like, Nodella, you packed a lot of stuff in here. So don't be misled because the book is thin. Listen, this book has a lot of questions, not a lot of questions, it has a lot of content, but also with this book, because I didn't want the reader to just zoom through reading the book as well. So I put some questions in chapter 1 to kind of pause them to think about what it is they're reading about. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Oh my goodness. Let me turn my ringer off. I am so sorry, everyone. I wasn't even expecting a call. Let me turn my ringer off. I'm so sorry.
You know, this is real life, Nodella. We don't, you do not have to apologize. So we go live in real time and life still happens.
Yes, it does. So like I said, is that I had added some questions in chapter 1, because again, I don't want my readers to zoom through the book. I want them to stop and think about what they've read so far in chapter 1, because when you go into chapter 2 and chapter 3, chapter 1 really guides you into chapter 2 and chapter 3. So I put the questions strategically in chapter 1.
Okay.
And then so when I was touring to not publish, but to market my book, I'm from Connecticut, for those who don't know. So I went back to Connecticut, and I had all these book signing engagements assigned in Connecticut. And I had went bike riding with my girly friend, and the worst possible thing could happen. I broke my ankle in the worst way. So I had to cancel everything. I only got to do 2 book signings. I had to cancel everything else. So in my time of recovering, because I was stuck in Connecticut, I couldn't travel because of the severity of my injury. So while I was laying there, mad, angry, having a little pity party as well, I began to just kind of, my mind, it goes off in all different types of directions. And so Sassy, the Perfect Life was actually birthed while I was on tour for this one.
Absolutely.
Yes. So do you
So
want me to talk about Sassy?
Say again.
Do you want me to talk about Sassy?
Absolutely. That's
okay.
what I was getting ready to say.
Okay. So Sassy, again, so at that time, I was in a relationship with somebody, and things just wasn't going right while I was recovering from this injury. And so again, you know how our minds just kind of go off, and you start thinking of some of the craziest things. And so I began to think, I said, I wonder if he has another child or family that he didn't tell me about. And that's why, I'm not hearing from him. So I'm laying there, and these thoughts are just spinning in my head, that I said, I bet you he got another kid that he didn't tell me about, and he don't want to tell me about it, or he don't know how to tell me about it. So that was actually the foundation for Sassy, based on that. So in Sassy, and as I get into it later on, she gets married to this guy who has a child, but never told Sassy about it. And I'll just leave it there.
Okay.
So that was the foundation of Sassy. I call this my fun book. So this one is a little bit thicker because there's a lot more going on with it. Also, Sassy, both of my books, I did also incorporate some of my personal experience as well, because I want to connect to my readers, and I want my readers to connect to me. I didn't want to just write a book just to say, oh, I wrote a book, or I wrote 50 books, and my readers aren't really connecting with the author. And I do like relationships, so I wanted that connection. So I did share some of my personal experiences. Sassy is more about me, but just in a third person or a second person, if you will. But both books, are really great books.
Okay. And so I know you have NSJ.
Yes.
NSJ Ministries.
Yes.
So are the authors, are the books under there? So as you author, and I'm sure you have another book in there somewhere. Yes. So as you author, are the books under NSJ? And what else do you do under NSJ?
Well, actually, this year I took it to an enterprise level. So I'm actually NSJ Enterprises LLC. And under that, yes, thank you. And under that, I have NSJ Ministries. And under NSJ Ministries, yes, my books will fall under NSJ Ministries. And there is definitely going to be Sassy #2. I'm actually in the midst of writing Sassy #2. And I'm also contemplating on doing a second edition for The Intimate Place, only because since I've written The Intimate Place, it's been 5 years now, I've gained so much more knowledge as well since I've written the book, and I want to add it to the book to, give my readers, something more to look forward to, and enhancing, if you will, or building their life of intimacy. So 5 years is a long time, to learn a lot of things. And, I just, when I have conversations with people, I always find a reason to talk about The Intimate Place. And I think about the conversations that I'm having. I'm like, that's a good piece that I could add, in another edition. People was asking me if I was going to do book #2. I thought about it, but instead of doing book #2, I'm just going to do a second edition.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yes,
When can we
yes,
look for that?
yes.
See, I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you. I'm going to make you accountable for that.
Well, you know what? I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So outside of being an author, I'm also, which I didn't share with you, I'm also a singer. I used to do praise and worship, but I do write songs. I'm also a singer. Haven't released anything yet. That's something that's in the works. I also have a clothing line that I released last year, which is called Sassy and Swag Collections. And it was inspired by Sassy. Um, and then I also have a women's shoe line that I'm working on. I have a lot of stuff. As they say, I have a lot of irons in the fire.
Okay.
Even as you and I talked a little bit last night about possibly being either a mentor to up and coming authors, or offering assistance in helping them to get started. I've been actually asked to do that before by a few people. I just hadn't really focused on it because there was other things that I was doing that I wanted to focus on at the time. But it is definitely something that I am considering as the demand requires it. I am open to doing that. So, the Lord just has me doing so many things. And, when I look back over my life, I said, there's almost nothing that I cannot do, or there's nothing that I have not been able to do that he's given me. I can be a seamstress when I need to be a seamstress. Again, just so many things. I retired at the age of 46 from the administrative field. And so I just kind of been doing some contract work. So I'm just kind of living out my life.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to give this platform over to you. I'll be in the background monitoring comments, and I'll feed those to you. You're also up on your pages as well. So, guys, if you have any questions for Nodella, then you can go ahead and put those in the comment box, and we will I'll come back in when you're finished. Are you going to do a reading for both of your books, or?
Yes, I'm going to just do a small reading for each book, just to, give my audience a taste of what they can look forward to in purchasing either or both of my books.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I will hop off, and when you're ready for me, I'm in the background. I'll hop back on.
Okay, great,
All right,
great.
thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Tessie. Good morning again, everyone. Again, my name is Nodella Sakajuwia Jordan. I am a 2-time published author. I am an entrepreneur / businesswoman. This morning in my live, I want to share with you a little bit from both of my books, as you've heard in the introduction and interview part of this live this morning with Tessie Jackson. I take great pleasure in writing. I enjoyed writing both of these books. And I do have other books that is on the helipad, if you will, that is waiting to be written out and released to the world. When I write, it's with a purpose, and it's not about becoming famous. It's not about becoming rich, but my desire for writing these two books specifically, and definitely with my future books, is that I want what I write about to be a resource to all readers. I want my books to be able to provide insight, to offer tips, to be helpful for whatever it is that you may be dealing with. So again, I've taken great pride in writing these books. I really enjoyed writing them. So I want to get right into reading a little bit of the books, but I also want to mention in the beginning that whoever purchases a copy of one or both of these books, you will receive one of my free journals, and I will show you those shortly. So if you're interested in purchasing a copy of either of my books, you can go to www, N as in Nodella, S as in Sacagawea, J as in Jordan, ministries.com/shop. So the first person who purchases one or both of my books will receive a free journal. All right. So I'm going to start off with The Intimate Place, My God, My Man, Myself. This book is very dear to me, only because of what it represents. And I do understand that some of my viewers and listeners, you may not be a believer of God, you may not be a Christian, and I do understand that and respect that. But I am a minister, and so I start out The Intimate Place talking about our relationship with God first and foremost, because He is the one who created us, and He is the one who created intimacy. And so I thought I should start out with Him, because the whole thought behind The Intimate Place was because many churchgoers struggle to be intimate with Him. And when we look at our natural relationships, whether we realize it or not, it will impact our other relationships. So I want to start off with sharing some questions with you that I want you to consider as I move forward in reading a little bit from The Intimate Place, My God, My Man, Myself. And oftentimes I will refer to this book as just The Intimate Place, because the title is kind of long. So if you just hear me say The Intimate Place, I'm talking about this book right here. It is also available online at Amazon. I believe Barnes and Noble still have it, possibly eBay. There's a number of outlets. You can either Google the name of the book, Google my name, and it will come up showing you what locations where you can purchase it. But again, you can also purchase The Intimate Place from my website, and then also from my printing company, which is Xulon, Xulon Press Publishing. So here are a few questions to consider. What do you need and desire in spiritual intimacy with God, your man, and yourself? What are you willing to give to experience spiritual intimacy with God, your man, and yourself? What would be your ideal spiritual intimacy experience with God, your man, and yourself? How often do you want or desire spiritual intimacy with God, your man, and yourself? I ask these questions because, again, everybody have their own understanding of what intimacy means. Unfortunately, society has programmed us subliminally to believe that intimacy is sex and sex is intimacy. But what I've shown in this book is there are other types of intimacy, which is spiritual, mental, emotional, verbal, non-sexual, physical, and then sexual, in that exact order. Why do I list them in that exact order? Because again, spiritual intimacy came from God, and it starts with God. And so when you start any intimacy, when it starts with spirit, from the spiritual aspect, and again, I'm being mindful of those of you who are watching and listening, that you may not be at that place, but I still need to let you know that intimacy starts with God, and it starts from a spiritual perspective. The reason why I then list mental, because it becomes a thought first before it becomes anything else. Once we transition from the spiritual, it becomes a thought next, because without a thought, we don't act or move upon anything. So this is why I go from spiritual to mental. And then we transition or move from mental to emotional, because once you get that thought in your mind, your heart then plays a role. Your heart also dictates, or our heart also dictates our actions. Our heart will determine whether we like somebody, whether we don't like somebody, whether we like something or don't like something. So we go from the spiritual to the mental to the emotional, and then we move on to the verbal. And again, if you follow what I'm saying is that once you've developed a thought, once you've developed some sort of emotions, then the only way anything or anyone will know how we feel is that we express it verbally. And so then we go into a state, if you will, of verbal intimacy. And then we go into the non-sexual physical intimacy, which is, some people like to hug, some people like to cuddle, some people like to hold hands if they're at the mall, or if they're going for a walk, or whatever the case may be. That's non-sexual physical intimacy. And then of course we have the sexual intimacy. One of the things that I want to highlight from my book is that we experience all of the other forms of intimacy far more than we do sexual intimacy. But yet many times sexual intimacy is what drives our relationships. We are now in an age where we have friends with benefits. We know what that means. But again, we have to go through the other forms of intimacy in order to get to the sexual intimacy part. Nobody just jumps up and say, let's have sex, because it still has to be a thought. It still has to be a heart thing. Then it comes out verbally before we actually take action. All right. So I want to just share a little bit here in chapter 2, the My Man chapter. Because a lot of people, who have read my book, a couple of people cheated and they skipped chapter 1 and they went straight to chapter 2. So I want to go to chapter 2, which is the My Man chapter. And I do always make this disclaimer that for the men who are married, to a woman, all you have to do is just switch it to my woman. All right. So just remember, this book was written from a woman's perspective. Another thing that I would like to share about my book is I ultimately wrote this book in an effort also to reach men. We know we women are very emotional, and so it doesn't take much of anything for us to become intimate. But men tend to be a little more reserved. They're not as liberal as we are as women. And so my goal was to reach as many men as possible. And so I've had quite a few men to purchase my book. I've even got a couple of marriage proposals out of it, because after they read the book, they were so blown away, if you will, or even perhaps impressed by what I had written from a woman's perspective, that, again, I received several marriage proposals, which I declined respectfully. But it was great to know that men had found my book to be enlightening for them, and also found it to be engaging as well. So I've had a number of them who purchased multiple copies of my book. So the intimate place is definitely a book for men just as well as women. It's good for teens, for I say maybe about 16, possibly 15, depending on their level of maturity. I would say teens, and it's definitely a great book for groups. I began to work on kind of, if you will, like a lesson plan for this book, especially when you're in a group setting. I hadn't completed it, but I'm still working on it. So hopefully, actually, that will be ready by the time I release the second edition of The Intimate Place. So let's go here as I promised. I'm in chapter 2. For those of you who may even have a copy of my book, it's the My Man chapter starts on page 31. And I'm going to go to page 33, which is subtitled Developing Your Relationship Before Sexual Intimacy. Too often we enter into relationships way too fast that God has not ordained. The same way God created Eve for Adam, he has someone that will complement who you are if you desire a relationship. Most women become intimately invested a lot quicker than a man does. Intimacy in and of itself should be handled with careful thought and process. We should guard it as a prized possession, even for non-Christians. The same applies to you regarding your relationships because God wants the best for all of us. God should be the foundation for all relationships, but especially with your man because he ordained marriage between the two. When you don't have a foundation, the relationship is on unstable ground. Some of us have gone from one relationship to another, but in doing so, how fulfilling was your intimate life? Intimacy is a stabilizer when nurtured and allowed to mature. It is unfortunate that intimacy most of the time is not discussed in depth, but yet it's a part of the relationship process, a thread that will help hold things together. Don't wait for your man to bring up the topic if it's a concern to you. Communication at the start of your relationship is key, and it is an important piece to having a healthy and successful life of intimacy. Far too often, when intimacy is discussed, it's from a general perspective, but you must be specific in what you want to talk about. Entering into a relationship blindly is something of great commonality and ease today. When there is no true connection outside of sex, being intimate in other ways are almost eliminated and never plays a role in stabilizing the relationship. So many couples have remained in a relationship when there's no intimacy between them whatsoever. Not having any intimacy in place, what is the relationship based on? Intimacy covers all areas of what makes us unique out of all of God's creations. In my opinion, many relationships are missing the friend piece. For centuries, the intimacy that takes place between friends has brought ridicule or speculation in today's society as to whether it is more than a friendship because of the intimacy which showed to be deeper than a relationship of traditional romance. There's nothing wrong with being friends first, even if the intent is to become husband and wife. As friends, you're more open. You become comfortable with sharing things about yourself like fears, successes, failures, etc., that you would not otherwise be so willing to share if you were dating because you're trying to make a good impression. With most friendships, a lot of the time there are no expectations or pressure to impress each other. With a friendship, trust is almost immediate from both parties because we naturally or subconsciously understand what it means to be a friend. As friends, quite a few people accept each other for who they are and don't seek to change each other. Friends are very supportive, caring, and loving. They're forgiving and not as judgmental. True friends respect each other's decisions, even when they don't agree. If more relationships started off as a friendship first, you would find out you're better off being friends than husband and wife. You can be attracted to someone and still be friends. Being attracted only means that they appeal to your senses and they potentially possess what you want in a companion. Whatever it took for you to capture the attention of your man, it does not stop after you're in a committed dating relationship or married. So I'm going to stop there at page 35. And so I share all of this again because what many people do not realize, the word intimate or intimacy simply means to have close relations or close relationship or to be very close friends. And so I want to, further help us to understand that when we are being intimate, we have more unconscious moments of being intimate than conscious moments. Prime example, and then I'm going to show you the journal. So our first buyer, if you purchase either of the books, you will get one of my free journals. When those of us who ever caught public transportation, such as the city bus, or if you took a cab, or if you've ever taken the train before, you sit down, you get comfortable, you have somebody typically sitting next to you. Next thing you know it, either you or them will strike up a conversation about the weather, about anything that may be of interest. And so you begin to engage in this conversation. And oftentimes it's a delightful conversation. It's an enjoyable conversation. What we don't realize at that moment, we are actually having verbal intimacy. Many people have shied away from using the word intimate or intimacy because, again, society has subliminally taught us that sex only equals intimacy and intimacy only equals sex, which is not true at all. Again, we have had so many conversations that were actually of an intimate nature. And the same way, even with the mental and the emotional, when we have these conversations and when you get so engrossed in these conversations, you're experiencing a time of intimacy. So at this time, I want to stop and take any questions that anybody may have. I don't know if we have any on Facebook. Tessie, do we have any?
Not yet, but I did want to open it up so that if anyone does have questions,
okay,
if they do have questions, they can come on in and ask the questions. I'm monitoring on my end.
Okay.
You have your other pages up. So at this time, if anyone has any questions.
Okay, so I'm looking now to see my page moderators, I guess you can call them, have not sent me anything, but let me go to one of my actual pages.
Okay.
And see. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything on the author's corner. And let me see if I have anything on my main page. And if I may, Tessie, even if the questions come in after, oh, here's 9 comments here. Okay. Even after the broadcast, the live, if people still have questions that we somehow possibly missed, I am very diligent about responding to comments. So know that about me. I am very diligent. So let me just look and see. We don't have, I just have, okay, so these are just comments, no questions as of yet on either of my pages at the moment. And again, we just want to encourage anyone who has a question, or even if you just want to post a comment. I am also live on Instagram, which is at Nodella Sacagawea Jordan. If you are not connected with me on Instagram, I am also streaming live from Instagram, as well as my Facebook pages. And we are on, and I so love the name, Funky Fly Flea Pages, which is also on Facebook. And she's on Instagram as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So wherever y'all see my gorgeous face, that's us doing the Author's Corner live on this morning. And if I can say also at this intermission, I want to thank Tessie Jackson for this opportunity, because it's just such a great opportunity to be able to go virtual with everything that's going on. And the idea she came up with to have a virtual flea market. So I'm putting a little plug in. If anybody you want to do a virtual live, like a flea market, Tessie Jackson is your go-to person. Again, her page is called Funky Fly Flea. On Instagram, it's all one word. On Facebook, it's Funky Fly, like the fly, and Flea, like flea market. If you are interested, I've also posted the flyer, and I will be reposting the flyer again for her contact information.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Guys, we have I have viewers on my page, and I know Nodella has viewers on her page as well. So this is the time that if you have questions for Nodella, that you can go ahead and place those in the comments. If not, we'll go ahead and have you talk about Sassy.
Okay. And you know what? I did forget to show the journal. So this is one of the designs of the journal that's called the Intimate Place Journal. Make the intimate place your intimate place. So this is just one of many designs. Again, if you go to my website, www.n as in Nodella, S as in Sacagawea, J as in Jordan, ministries.com/shop, you will see other designs. Also, you will see journals for Sassy's journal to the perfect life as well.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to pop back off, and I will turn it back over to you. You can talk about Sassy, and then we'll come back on and see if anyone has any questions.
Okay, great. So I am going to, there's just so much good stuff inside of Sassy as well. I'm going to, I'm sorry, everybody. I thought I knew where I wanted to start at. You know what? Let me start with, okay, so again, Sassy was birthed while I was on tour for the Intimate Place in 2015. And I finally got around to finishing Sassy, and I published Sassy last year. And one of the things about Sassy, The Perfect Life, as you heard, the book ultimately was inspired by a relationship that I was in. But as I began to build around that one thought, the foundation of the book, I began to discover that she was actually on a journey seeking out a perfect life. Now, we know ultimately there is really no such thing as the perfect life in its truest sense. But the perfect life for each of us is what we decide it is going to be. One of or several examples that I gave in my book of what is the perfect life. Some people, their perfect life is they want to be married, but they don't want any children. So they have pets. Another person may say, well, you know what? I want to be married. I want the children and I want the pets. That's their perfect life. Each of us can determine, no one can truly determine what your perfect life is but you. And so in Sassy, I share the ups and downs that she endured in her pursuit for her perfect life. And again, I don't want any of my readers to think that Sassy's perfect life is the cookie cutter of having the perfect life, because again, we all have different desires of what we want in our perfect life or the ideal life. And so as Sassy sets out for this, she encounters some serious situations. And so that really caused me to dig into my imagination even further as I began to write, because I began to ask myself, where do you want this story to go? How do you want this story to end? And I want to say to those of you who think there is no such thing as a happy ending or a happily ever after, first of all, Sassy is not a fantasy book. Again, there are some of my own personal life experiences that I've incorporated throughout Sassy. This is not meant to be a fantasy book. No disrespect to Cinderella or Snow White. This is not a Cinderella or Snow White book. This is a book that will help us in real life. Again, I shared my own personal experiences to take away from that fantasy type imagination that, oh, yeah, she has it happily ever after. Do you know in real life, you too can have a happily ever after? We all can have a happily ever after, whether you realize it or not. And so one of the most devastating things that Sassy endured was that she got married to a guy that she thought she knew. And she didn't tell her parents about the guy. Now, she was an only child. She was very close to her parents. But for whatever reason, she didn't feel confident enough to tell her parents about this mystery guy. She called him the perfect gentleman because at the beginning of their relationship, he was the perfect gentleman. And she was like, oh, then I think we would have a perfect life together. And so once they got married, some things began to take place. And so let me find my page because I started flipping through and okay. So I'm going to go, and for those of you who may have a copy of my book, I am going to just jump in and start at page 34. So it says, a few weeks ago, I'm sorry, a few weeks go by and Rasan was on his way to pick up Sassy for a date. When she got settled in the car, he nervously asked Sassy, would you go away with me to Atlantic City for the weekend? Memorial Day is coming in a few weeks and it would be great. Her first thought was, would we be sleeping in the same room? And let me not analyze. Let me just read it. I just get so excited. So I'm sorry, guys. I just get so excited. So Memorial Day is coming in a few weeks and it would be great. Her first thought was, would we be sleeping in the same room? She surprisingly blurted out. With a look of surprise, Rasan responds, no, we can have separate rooms with adjoining doors if that's okay with you. Well, I guess that would work. It's going to be great and full of fun, Sassy. I'll send you the details in a couple of days. Sounds like we're going to have a great time. We sure are, trust me. The weekend came and away they went. Putting their belongings in their rooms, they drove until they saw a restaurant of interest, which was a Japanese place. May I ask, what are the plans for the weekend? I'd like to keep it a surprise, Sassy. I told you, don't worry, it's going to be fun. Okay, then I won't spoil the surprises. After leaving the restaurant, Rasan pulls up to a bowling alley. Bowling? Asks Sassy. Sure, why not? I don't bowl that well. No worries. It's not a competition, unless you want it to be. No, let's just have fun. They return to the hotel after a couple of hours of bowling. Rasan checked Sassy's room to make sure that it met her approval. Wow, Rasan, this is a very beautiful this is a very beautiful room. Look at the decor, and you had fresh flowers delivered. The bed is big enough for 4 people. I love it. Thank you so much. He could see the expression on her face that everything was to her liking. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. I'm glad you like it. Let me know if you need anything. I'm going to check on my room as well. I'll call you shortly. Sassy made her way to the bathroom to an even greater surprise. The bathtub was almost the size of a kiddie swimming pool with jacuzzi features also. She didn't wait to take a hot bubble bath. Shortly after, the phone rings. Hi, Sass. I wanted to check in on you one more time before saying goodnight. Sassy stated unexpectedly, this room is for a princess, Rasan. You are a princess, Sass. She just giggled like a little girl. He humbly replied, it's no big thing and you deserve it. Thank you again for making the arrangements. They talked on the phone for a bit before calling it a night. Good night, Rasan. Good night, Sass. She could hardly sleep because of her excitement of staying in such a fancy hotel and going away for the first time. The next day, Rasan and Sassy met to get breakfast at a nearby restaurant. They both had quite an appetite. The restaurant offered a breakfast buffet. Their conversation was about completing law school and other future aspirations. I really needed this weekend, Rasan. Me too, Sass. Would you like to go swimming at the hotel? That would be fun, Rasan, but I didn't bring a bathing suit. Neither did I. Let's check with the gift shop to see if they have anything for us. If they don't, there's a nearby shopping mall where I'm sure we will find something. The two lovebirds went to the mall and found swimwear for themselves. They immediately returned to the hotel for some swimming. After, they decided to go on a tour of Atlantic City, and stopping to take pictures at a photo booth was included. Their body language made it clear that they were enjoying themselves, and the fact that they kept talking of being away from the office. It was obvious the weekend was successful so far. Sassy, the hotel is sponsoring a social gathering in the garden for their guests tonight. Would you like to go? Sounds like more fun. I'm up for it. Finishing up swimming, they went back to their rooms to freshen up. Soon arriving to the gathering, Rasan asked, Sass, would you please dance with me? I'm not that great of a dancer, Rasan. That's okay. I'll teach you a few moves. Do you really want to dance, Rasan? Yes, Sass, I do. All right, then. They began dancing, but Rasan didn't take notice because his focus was on how beautiful Sassy looked under the moonlit sky. The young couple literally laughed and danced the night away. So I'm going to stop there. So as you can see, Sassy has a lot going on. And again, this is how thick it is. There is, I didn't mention it for the intimate place, but Sassy has roughly has 111 pages in it. So it's a great read. It will definitely keep you entertained. One of the things that I've told all of my purchasers and readers, that make sure you have a box of tissue nearby, because I literally tap into, I think, any and every emotion that we could possibly experience. It's going to have you definitely laughing, because Sassy is a character. It's going to bring some tears. It's going to make you think, would I have responded that way? So again, Sassy is filled with a lot of different scenarios that we go through on our journey to obtain that perfect or ideal life that we're looking for. So I hope you enjoyed the reading, though it was brief, but again, I just wanted to give you a taste of what to look forward to in the intimate place and Sassy.
Wonderful. I enjoyed the readings very much. We're going to take about a minute or so to see if anyone has any questions. So I have a question. Sassy has a journal as well?
Yes, Sassy has a journal. In her journal, I don't have one here with me because I actually just created that one, but her journal is called Sassy's Journal to the Perfect Life.
Okay. All right. Any questions from anyone? If not, we will go ahead and get you to tell us how we can get a copy of your books and your journals.
Okay. So I do have somebody who did make a comment. And she says, mine isn't a question, it's a comment you made, which I appreciate. Friends before marriage. You don't have to marry your friends. Exactly. And that's what and this comment is based on the intimate place. And I drive that home in the second chapter because, again, in our almost desperate attempt to be in a relationship, we often forego that friendship piece, which is really key. Because when you are friends, if y'all have an argument, guess what? After that argument, after both of you calm down, you're still friends. You can still come together. You still do whatever. So having that friend piece really is key before entering an intimate relationship with another person. For those of you who desire to be in a relationship and you desire to be married, really having that friendship piece is key, again, because I had a best friend. Well, we're still best friends. We just haven't seen each other in years. Her and I would fuss each other out, but guess what? The next day, if not even the same night, we on the phone jaw jacking. That's true friendship. And when you have that, that's also a glue to our relationships. So again, if you would like to purchase a copy of either or both of my books, you can go to www.n as in Nodella, S as in Sacagawea, J as in Jordan, ministries.com/shop. So that's www.nsjministries.com/shop. And again, if you purchase my book during this broadcast, those of you, I'm still waiting for my first customer. If you are the first customer to purchase either of my books, you will receive one of these journals. And I just want to say to the men, I do got you covered. So I know you may say, well, I don't want a journal looking like that because that looks like a woman's journal. I got you covered. Don't worry about that.
So great. make sure, guys, that if you want to purchase, that you can comment here, or that you can go on, and it's pinned on Funky Fly Flea NSJ Ministries
Yes.
.com/shop to purchase. Okay.
Yes.
The first purchase will receive of either Sassy or of the Intimate Place will receive a free journal.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to close out today. We have another vendor coming in right after this, but I did want to thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to get my copies. I may be your I can't wait to get my copies. But let's talk after this today, and we'll, start talking about some other things that we can do as well. I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Yes.
Thank you for watching. Sharon wants to know, how much are the books?
So the Intimate Place is $9.99. Sassy is $13.49. And also, I forgot to mention the journals. Just for today, they are on sale. So they normally go for $20.88, but they are on sale for $17.96.
Okay, $17.96 today only.
Yes.
And the first purchase of the day is a free journal.
Yes. And just quickly, I forgot to open up. So this is what the journal looks like on the inside. It's not a devotional type journal. This is just a general journal. It has 128 pages in it. It's hardback, and it just allows you to be able to write down whatever you want to write down for. Whether you like I said, doodle, or if you're, taking notes or anything like that, it's perfect. As you can see, it's on the small side, and it can fit in pretty much any pocketbook.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Sharon, thank you for that question. And Nodella, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tessie, for having me. I greatly enjoyed myself.
Oh, thank you so much. Guys, we're going to have Marina's Boutique Apparel coming up. Marina's Boutique Apparel coming up next. So stay tuned for Marina. She has some great items to show us. She does t-shirts, she does totes. She has some bags for us today. So please stay tuned. We will definitely like to, have you on. We'll be coming on right after this with Marina. Thanks again for joining us, Nodella. And guys, thanks for joining Funky Fly, the hottest, and I mean the hottest virtual flea market around.
Yes.